What if the shift that you've been working toward isn't something that builds gradually? What if it's something that happens in a moment? Just a simple, subtle, quiet shift that didn't require a breakthrough or a crisis or some immersive retreat experience? What if it was just a quiet internal shift or a click where suddenly something that used to take so much effort to accomplish just becomes your new default? By the end of this video, I want to show you what that moment actually is and what creates it, and why understanding this will change how you look at your own internal work. Because if you've been doing this kind of work for a while, and I mean the real work, not dabbling with affirmations and alter egos, but I mean you really have worked with coaches, maybe a therapist, and you know what it feels like to put in sustained effort towards a shift and then watch it happen in what feels like an instant, the years of having to deal with something. And then all of a sudden, one conversation, one decision, or one brief moment of clarity. And this thing that used to require your constant management just stops requiring it. And it wasn't gradual, it was sudden. There was just one moment and everything shifted. Or maybe you haven't experienced that yet with the specific thing that you're working on, whether it's external validation, an addiction to busyness, procrastination, whatever the case may be, the thing that's still at the edge that is just maddening you because you've taken care of everything but this one little thing. It's really driving you up the wall. The shift just hasn't arrived yet. And I want to talk about what it looks like in both of these situations, because understanding it just doesn't make what you're doing make more sense. It changes how you approach and look at the work that you're doing. Because the personal development world is overwhelmingly organized around gradual change. 6 months packages, 12-month packages, working with someone for 2 years. You're working on habits, consistency, and you're gradually compounding things. It's like compounding low-level interest on a savings account. You're just getting 1% better every day. That in the message from coaches, productivity, books, frameworks, is that transformation is built incrementally, that it accumulates over time until one day you look back and realize you become someone different. And that's true for many behavioral habits, for skills that we learn, for learning to articulate in conversation, or how you interact in a room with other people, those certain kinds of external change. But that's not how identity changes. And a lot of people are talking about identity and they just don't get it. They're confusing these two things. They're confusing behavior and skills with identity. And that creates a source of a specific kind of frustration, one where you've done everything you're supposed to do for as long as you were supposed to do it, and something still didn't shift. So if you're approaching an identity level change the same way you would approach building a new habit or building a new behavior, it's the right effort, but you're putting it in the wrong direction. Identity doesn't accumulate into change. Identity arrives. It just is, where there's this moment where many times we don't even realize it's happened. We know that there's been a shift, but we don't understand that that shift was the new identity locking into place, that it clicked, that deep in the subconscious, a decision got made where there's this new way of seeing yourself that used to require so much effort. And now what once required so much effort is just freaking natural. That internal boardroom meeting, as I like to tell my husband, I'm having a boardroom meeting up here. Don't bother me right now. That internal negotiation just goes away, and people describe it in different ways. I will see the shift and I will point the shift out to them, and they're just like, meh. Then as the week goes by before the next session, I get a message from them like, oh my God, you're not going to believe what happened. I'll say, tell me about it. And they begin to lay out a scenario. And they're like, and I spoke up. I didn't think about it. I didn't feel anything. I just said what needed to be said. And afterwards, I was like, oh my God, I did that. I wasn't worried about what they thought. I wasn't rehearsing what I was going to say in my mind and miss the opportunity. And I felt totally calm. And the craziest thing is, they were like, yeah, you're right. Some people may say, I just kind of woke up and I felt different, like something inside of me settled, and I don't know what settled. I just know I feel different. None of this is magic or random. What's happened is there's been a threshold moment that has been reached where the conditions were right in the subconscious mind for the shift to be created. And the identity finally reorganizes around this new configuration, this new framework, this new foundation. The work that you do doesn't cause the shift directly, though. What it does is it creates the conditions for the moment that allows it to happen. And it's a fundamentally different understanding of what you're actually doing when you do this work. You're not creating the shift, you're creating the opportunity for this identity change to land. And when you think change is gradual and you measure progress by how much has accumulated, and I'm 90 to 95% there, the shift is close, it's not here yet, when's it gonna click? You feel like you're not accumulating fast enough, and you feel like you're not doing enough, and you might be doing it wrong. And at times the gap between where you are and where you want to be feels like it is a gap of failure or effort, but it's not. What you've been doing is you've been creating conditions for a threshold moment. And the work that you've been doing up to this point is not the change itself, but it is what makes that change possible. I have clients that come to me that have been through 10, 11, 12, 13 years of therapy, and they'll say to me, I accomplished more with you in a few weeks than I did in that 13 years of therapy. But that 13 years of therapy was not a waste. That 13 years of therapy laid the groundwork for the shift that we created to have space to land. But at some point in that 13 years, what they were doing was they were repeating the same old thing. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. They had been ready for this shift that we created for years, but they thought, like most people do, that continuing to do more of the same therapy, more of the same coaching was going to continue to build this shift. The therapy had already done what it was going to do. It created the space. So once that space was created, we were able to go in. And I'm going to be honest with you. Sometimes when you've done 10, 11, 12, 13 years of therapy, and the last many years of that therapy got you nowhere, you were just rehashing the same old things. One of the first things that we get to shift is that we get to shift the idea that nothing's working, that the change isn't possible, because sometimes there's a belief that can settle in that everything stopped working. Why would this work? And that becomes the first thing that we have to shift. But let me back up to where we are. All of the other work is what makes this shift possible. And you're not behind and you're not missing something. You were creating the conditions that don't necessarily happen in a linear timeline so that you could reach the threshold. And then when we go into the subconscious and we shift what's happening at an identity level, the change locks in. And to be quite honest, it's very anticlimactic for most of my clients. And in the session, it doesn't feel like much has happened. But when they go out and they're in the real world, that's when my phone starts firing off messages about the changes that they're experiencing, the conversations that they're having that they never would have had, the boundaries that they held that before they always ended up giving in. It's about the quality of what you're doing when you're in that space to create that shift. And then that quality spills over. So the quietest of shifts, even the most subtle of changes in the subconscious, when it's of high quality, you see big things happen in real life. And this is where the difference between insight that stays intellectual and insight that creates a threshold moment in the subconscious mind that shifts identity is nothing more than the depth of the contact. The work that is going to move you is the work that gets below the level where you can see it, where you're even aware it's there. It's why you can understand something completely and you still find yourself doing the same thing over and over. Understanding what happened at the conscious level and understanding what's causing it at the identity level are not the same thing. Changing it at the conscious level and shifting it at the identity level are not the same thing. They're very different thresholds, and we don't automatically cross them at the same time. It's the reason why you can know to your bones you do not need external validation, yet you can start to do something and you're having a conversation with someone around something that's important. And before you know it, you were playing back into the old pattern of external validation. It's because the identity hasn't shifted yet. The real shift is at the identity level, and it almost never looks like what people expect. It's quiet. One of my clients says, I have no idea what you did. It was like magic. It's kind of like air. It was just there. And for so long, she had felt she was right at the edge. And then there was just this settling when her identity shifted. So when you're looking at identity change work, once that threshold has been crossed, once the identity has reorganized, the old pattern is not available in the same way anymore. It's not that it's impossible to access, but it's no longer the default. And this is very clear. It's not that the old pattern is no longer there, it's no longer the default. And it would take more effort to go back to the old way than to stay in this fresh new way. And this is where all the work that you've done before comes in with consciously building habits, because it reinforces, it supercharges reinforcing that new identity, because you don't have a new behavior running on an old identity. This behavior you've been striving for running on the new identity that supports it. And so the identity organizes the behavior. So now it's happening automatically instead of through forced effort. If you happen to be an entrepreneur and you listen to this, we've all had times where there's something that we got to do in our business that we didn't want to do, or we were nervous about doing, we were uncertain, and we had to consciously push and force our way through it because we didn't know what the outcome was going to be. If you're shifting your identity to trust yourself, now you have a foundation where when you hit those uncertain moments, you're aware that there's uncertainty there, but there's no more pushing and forcing. You're like, yep, there's uncertainty there, but I trust myself. Let's go. And you barrel right through, and you never have to give a second thought or a question to how you feel, to negotiating with yourself to get it done, because the filter that had been running in the background that was creating all the static, it's gone. And it's just that easy. And everything you put out into the world, every conversation you have, every relationship you have is going to reflect that. And it's not because you changed the strategy around how you were showing up as a person, but the person that you are executing the strategy has changed. And the people around you are going to notice it before you do. It's interesting how that happens sometimes, where people read your subconscious cues and they're like, wow, something's changed about you. There's something different. You look younger. Did you change your hairstyle? Have you lost weight? I don't know what's changed, but something has. And then you begin to realize that something indeed has changed. So when you're looking to shift your identity, The shift you're working towards hasn't been built brick by brick. It's something that you're approaching, it's something that you're working up to. And when the conditions are sufficient, that shift happens, and it happens very quickly. And when you're in hypnosis and you have this identity shift, you can immediately lay down this new foundation of a desired identity. And the degree of impact that that has on how you're showing up simply can't be measured, because we don't realize how our identity becomes a filter for each and everything that we do in our life. So hopefully this reframe has shaped something in you so that you look at the work that you're doing now and you're seeing that it still matters, even if you're at that 90-95% edge, and the edge that you're at is real. But just remember, the identity doesn't change in degrees. It's going to change in a very specific moment in the subconscious where it clicks. And what you're doing right now is creating the condition for yours. And this is what I do. I work with clients to create the conditions for those threshold moments at the identity level. It's not insight for insight's sake. This is the kind of work where we're going well below the level of awareness. We are shifting the aspect of the identity that has created a perception that supported the behavior you're no longer available for. We shift that perception, create a healthier, more authentic, true expression, perception, belief, and then we lay your new identity on top of it. And awareness alone cannot get you there. If you're ready for this, if you're at that edge and it is time for you to just finally be done with it and step into the next phase for yourself, maybe you're not sure you're ready for the one-on-one work yet, and you want to know a little bit more about who is Penny and what exactly is she talking about. Hypnosis seems a little out there. I want you to join me for Hypnosis Secrets Unlocked. The next round of Hypnosis Secrets Unlocked is June 6th and 7th. It's 2 full days. It's only $97. It's insane. It should be priced well above that. But I want to make it available to as many people as possible. Join me for Hypnosis Secrets Unlocked. Come get to know at a much deeper level what this work is about, and then you can decide for yourself if this is something that is suited for you as you step into the identity that you're desiring. The link will be below in the description. Be sure to hit subscribe, like this video, and come back for the next one.